Ah, yes. Hey, Mlungis. Uh, I was telling you, I was telling you that I was having an interesting conversation with someone on Twitter, with regards
Yeah.
to center midfielders, defensive midfielders. So basically, like midfield roles. So even when we share this, I'm not even sure what I'm gonna call it. Maybe you'll help me with that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I just
Yeah.
decided let's have a conversation about it, and obviously, like you'll mostly be schooling me about this thing because if I had all the know-how, I'd do it myself, but I had to bring in an expert. So yeah, maybe, who knows? Maybe this is the beginning of a podcast for you and I. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I'm also wearing a cap indoors because lockdown, can't even get my hair
Hey, we
cut.
can see.
It's bad, yeah.
Hey, give my heart.
It's bad,
Hey,
man.
give my heart. Hey,
Yeah,
problems.
yeah, it's big problems. Yeah, so I just
Yeah.
thought let's just have a discussion about it. And
Yeah.
yeah, so Kabonamo, you have your DM or deep line playmaker, what they call it, DLP, in what people call modern football. First, like, let me ask you this first: do you like this thing,
Yeah.
this time, yeah, modern football?
Not to a certain extent, because I'm a firm believer that football repeats itself. The history of football is so vast that there's really nothing new in football. It's just like fashion. Things go out of fashion and then they are back into fashion. So it's a continuous cycle of processes that repeat themselves.
Yeah,
And even some of the best coaches in the world will tell you at the moment that there's nothing new. It's
yeah.
just bringing practices back and processes back and making them more fashionable again. And it's the same. It's the same thing with regards to even deep line playmakers.
Yes.
It's something that we've seen in the early 1960s, 1970s.
Yes.
Yeah, and now they're coming back. They're coming back into fashion, So the reality is there's not a lot of new things at the moment. It's just football coming back and being so you can't say it's modern. If it
Yeah.
was modern, then it wouldn't have happened in the past.
Yeah. So maybe do you think, or maybe like, is it maybe like in terms of like applications now, like do we apply things better than we used to back in the days?
I think there's more. There's in the past there wasn't a lot of documentation of information, and because of that, stories, tactics were not told, and the roles were not classified per se. So now technology and the advancement of society allows us to record, to capture data, to record events, and because of that, there's a lot more. You can get a lot more information at the click of a button,
Yeah.
unlike before. So the reality only is just because of modern society, the advancement and the introduction of advanced technology and the likes. I think we get more and more into the space where information is readily available. So therefore, it's easier to find out what are coaches at different levels and different spaces, what are they doing, and how are they applying the information. But the reality is, if you go deep into the tactics and the origins of tactics, for an example, the WM formation. The WM formation is making a steady comeback into football at the moment. So it was something that was done. I mean, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and again it comes back into football, and the importance of deep line playmaker, the one-on-one man marking schemes. Now you find these one-on-one man marking schemes with close relations to the pressing applications. So the advancement of football, of course, and the rules also allows us to keep trying new things. But the reality is there's a lot of things that have been done before, and if you I always say to coaches, especially to what I call the technocrats, people that have not played the game at the highest level, because when you haven't played the game at the highest level, there's a void that you have, because there's a intrinsic feel for the game that maybe you have to develop as it goes, but you develop that with reading and balancing off with the experiences. So the reality is, if you do not study and thoroughly so the game of the past, there's a big, maybe that could be our next topic, is there's a big talk about gassy flavor football and So, but if it's got its own history, but it's not for us. But it's for us to study the game of the past. Study how come we used to stand on the ball, Shaivala and Tsamaya, and all those things. Why did we do those? But you have to study the game of the past.
That Kasi tournament football. That Kasi tournament football. I don't like it. So much
I know why you don't like it.
Yes, I don't like it.
But I know why you don't like it. It's okay. It's okay not to like it. But I think to understand its origins is very important. I think to understand its origins, where it comes from, is very, very important. And to understand it is to go into the history of South African football. And that's important. The game of the past has got so many clues. It's got so important pointers that if we study it and study it religiously, we can be one step ahead in terms of the evolution of the game, because that's like I said earlier, that's where football goes. Football goes back. It's like a cycle. It goes back into its original forms, and then does another move towards where we were before, and then obviously with the changes of laws, for an example, now you can build up inside the box. The laws allow for you to build up, and that advances football to a certain degree. So it's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. I think let's go into what we're looking at now. Like you have a nice image here of a DM or a defensive midfielder or a DLP.
Yeah, I think when you started it and you said to me, and you actually mentioned a very important statement. You said to me, all
DMs are CMs, but not all CMs are DMs.
Yeah. All DMs are CMs, but not all CMs are DMs.
Yes.
Yes. So it makes sense because of course the roles, but the reality is, and I'll show you now that we're getting into a space where we have what we call a hybrid central midfielder. So a player that has, and that's why I've got Thiago Alcantara now, because my analyst Sbu was talking to me as we were preparing this presentation and was saying to me, Coach, have you seen Thiago's stats? And I was like, no, I haven't. And he says he's having the best season of his life. I said, as an 8 or as a 10? He says as a 6.
Yeah.
I said, as a 6. You must check. He says check his clips, and I haven't been following because I don't follow a lot of Bayern, to be honest. I follow a bit of the younger coaches.
Obviously. Leipzig, I knew it.
I follow Leipzig. I follow Borussia Dortmund because I've always been close to the team. So ever since Pep left Bayern, I lost a bit of interest with Bayern. So it was interesting for me to see. And then I went into some of the clips and I checked some of the movements of Alcantara, and I was impressed. The movements, the work without the ball, and the interceptions, the regains. But unbelievable how he's now evolving into what we call a hybrid 6. But you can see that it's that Barca school, it's the Busquets school, it's the school that's brought us so many of these talented central midfielders.
Yeah.
So the clear distinction is obviously in that space where you're saying, is it a DM or is it a CM?
Yeah.
And like you say, CMs is the overall, because in terms of the pitch and how we divide the pitch, you divide the pitch into vertical corridors. So you've got your wide corridors on the left, on the right, and then you've got the central corridor. Of course, now with the evolution of tactics again, we've tried to invent what we call the half spaces, which is now also the space that is used by both the wingers to invert inside, and sometimes even the attacking midfielders come into those areas and into the pockets, which is traditionally or known as the half space, which is the space between the center back maybe and the full back. And again, another topic, because it's a wide, very wide topic with why is it become so popular? You know, why the half space, and what are the pros and the cons of occupying the half space, and why it's become so important in modern football, you know, both from a defensive perspective and from an offensive perspective. So that could be, I like the suggestion you had earlier that this could start to form a podcast.
Yeah.
Because there's so many topics
there's so many things
on from this. But no, there's a lot. But the reality is football has gone from that space where central midfielders occupy the central corridor, and then we divide them into, are they initially, that's what we had, are they your traditional number 10s or your attacking midfielders, or are they your defensive midfielders? And then it's gone even deeper into dividing that, because with formations and the evolution of formations, we've now gone into a space where we say, from the defensive midfielders, are they what we call anchormen? Are they what we call registers? Are they what we call box-to-box midfielders? So it's very interesting, but the reality is a DM and a deep line playmaker, a registrar, are both central midfield roles, and they carry similar functions.
Okay. So, but now let's say you're like in layman's terms, like when you look at let's not say like a Busquets. You know, like Makelele played like the 6, like to a point where they even coined it the Makelele role. And like I remember, because like I'm a Liverpool supporter, I remember when Mascherano left, I was like, all we need is someone to play the Makelele role, and we're okay. And even with like football evolving and whatnot, even like when we got Fabinho, I was like, yes, now we have the balance that we need. So now, when you say they carry the same functions, would a DLP have to do everything that a DM would have to do, or like who has the heavier burden?
That again then brings me to my next slide, because that's a very interesting question. So who carries the bigger burden is in relation to how the team plays. So we've got, for an example, with our study and our analysis of these roles, we've got 3 teams. We've got a Chelsea team, we've got a Barcelona team, and we've got an Atletico Madrid team. So in both teams, you, especially with Atletico, because Atletico are still within the 4-4-2 sort of frame, where they've got a Koke playing with Thomas Partey, for an example. And they tried a little bit last season when they had Rodri playing a little bit, but you would only see that in some of the games, but not as much in the bigger games and in the Champions League, where they would still go for the reinforced defensive block of 2 banks of 4. And religiously, Simeone is always stuck to that. But if you look at the styles of play, it's important that you consider not just the game model of the team, but also the individual player characteristics. So who carries the bigger burden would be a player that plays in a system or in a game model that says what more responsibilities lie in attack or in defense. So you use the scale to say, for an example, at Chelsea, very pragmatic. They when they play in some of the games, maybe not as much this season, but last season with Sarri and if you remember, even in this final against Manchester City, where they sacrificed possession and they were pragmatic in their approach to say, we don't want as much of the ball as normally we do. We want to have a structure where we can try and catch Man City on the counter attack. But if the game allows us, and in some of the matches more than others, we want to dominate possession. So obviously, when we want to dominate possession, we want to play through the thirds. We want to build from the back. We want to initiate our movements through our number 6. Jorginho, or whatever you want to pronounce it. And they initiate their attacking schemes from him. The reality is he would then be anchored or supported by your Kante in relation to a player that has the legs to cover spaces, to initiate the pressing and all of that. And then they would sacrifice a lot of the offensive responsibilities to him, to initiate the play, to link up the midfield with the defensive line, to assist the team to gain superiorities in advanced areas. So those would be the things. With Busquets, I think it's clear. You see the Barcelona side that says we want to be dominant on the ball. So the responsibility and the burden of being in possession of the ball is more with him than probably with a Partey, for an example, because with Partey, most of the time the team is without the ball. The team says we don't want the ball, we want to regain the ball. But we also want to initiate quick counterattacks. So Busquets, Jorginho will influence phases of play in relation to how much possession they keep, how much they help the team to play, to retain possession, to initiate attacks. In possession of the ball, they've got a bigger burden. A Partey, for an example, and you can go into similar teams that played in a similar way, like a Man United with a Roy Keane and a Paul Scholes, for an example. Those would be your teams that had a Koke and a Partey, a similar sort of partnership in the midfield. Those midfielders would be your midfielders that break down the play and then initiate transitions. So the game model of the team is the first point of context. To put everything into a point of understanding is the game model. How do those teams play? So once we have an understanding of how Chelsea play, Barcelona play, Atletico Madrid play, or an AC Milan, for an example, that had a Gattuso in relation to that AC Milan.
Well, they had Gattuso, Seedorf, and then Pedro.
100%. So they would have that three in the midfield where they had Pirlo, Seedorf, and Gattuso. But you'd have your Gattuso and your Pirlo just on the sides and giving that energy, the legs, the pressing initiations, the box-to-box movements, the balance to the team, where you'd find a Pirlo being the one that initiates the build-ups. Everything goes through him, and then you'd allow the midfielders, even at Juventus, when he had Marquisio, he had Pogba, they were the ones
and Arturo Vidal,
the midfield. Arturo Vidal, yes, 100%, and they would be the ones that would press on the sides and cover the fullbacks, and instead of him moving from that position. So the reality is the first context for understanding roles and functions of the team is first the game model of the team he plays for, and then the players' characteristics in relation to the position. So to understand the game model of the three teams, we went into some of the games, and it's a consistent feature for all of the teams. If you look at how the passing network or the passing matrix of the teams, you find Ibasa with if you look at the thickness of the passes. So you've got a lot of passes that go from PK, Umtiti, and that triangulation that is very thick between Umtiti, Busquets, PK, you see how many passes travel, particularly from PK to Umtiti to PK. So a lot of patience in that space. But you see how close Busquets is. So distances, they used to call it the quarterback, and in American football also the quarterback role, what do they call it?
Yes, it is actually, because like we've always said, like even like, bring it to back home. Like I always say, Trump is the quarterback, because no matter what, like if you find a team that is very rigid, like you always find a forward with like a quarterback pass.
Yeah, you can, and that's the pass that has become extremely, particularly because of this style of play. What is important with this style of play is to invite the press. So you need to invite the press, but while you're inviting the press, your players, and I'll show you now why I've even put a matrix. Can we see how many dribbles they have, the central midfielders, when you compare them? Because you need to be able to dribble and carry the ball, but also you need to be able to play out of pressure and be press resistant. Because without the press, there's no point in trying to play from the first line and possession. Yeah, well, you can't. One of the key commodities for building from the back is pressure. So sometimes there are first station passes that are used as a signal to invite the press, and when the press then comes, it is to try to say, can we then find exactly that, the quarterback pass? And rightfully so, like you said, Sundowns have a clear understanding of the usage of that sort of pass.
And also, sorry to cut you off, Rhulani. I like the fact that you said that, because there's this thing that I always see, like people always saying like, so and so getting back pass, so and so doing back passes, and in my understanding, even though like some players will give you more verticality than other players, especially like central midfielders. But to me, sometimes whenever maybe like we say such and such a midfielder, like he has too many back passes. But sometimes is it not informed by the type of style that you like the team is playing and what the coach is trying to establish with saying maybe like recycle the ball and then let's invite the press?
No, 100%. Again, it's about information, and sometimes we are misguided. You know, we belong in the space where we are very pulled by the nose. You know, we are pulled by the nose because of social media. One form of interpretation of things. It could be correct or misguided, but the reality is whatever opinion gets thrown out first sometimes is the same opinion that everybody else starts to jump onto. And it's part of our society. We have to accept it, you know, because unfortunately we do live in that sort of space, and we must be able, and that's why platforms like this are very important, to be able to educate our people, because it's important to be able to retain possession and try to find possibilities to advance and possibilities of superiority in higher areas of the pitch. You can't always do that when you sacrifice possession or you reach possession with forward passes and diagonal balls. There are moments that you have to try to retain possession, invite the press, and once you can only do that with what we call first station passes. You know? So sometimes it is that as long as it's calculated, there's a purpose for it. There's absolutely no problem for it, you know. And particularly within what we call as the phase of the first phase of the build-up. Because when you're in attack, we say we have our build-up zone, our consolidation zone, our incision zone, and then our termination zone. So those are the things that when we are in that zone where we are in between build-up and consolidation, that's when we want to invite the press. We want to invite the press when we're in the build-up and want to get into consolidation. And at times, teams are still very resolute, well-drilled defensively, and you don't find the half space or the space behind the last line of the defense, then you've got to maybe bring the block a little bit higher, but you can't do that if you're going to put the ball into the complex space. So there's nothing wrong with a pass. A back pass has a huge role in football at the moment.
Yeah. Okay, you can continue with what you wanted to go on now.
So the range of the passes and the influence. So if you look at the Busquets, for an example, the distances between him and PK and Umtiti, the centre backs, is a lot. Hence, I was speaking about the coming back of the WM formation, the inverted fullbacks. You see how narrow Sergio Roberto and Semedo are in relation to on my far right. You have a Juan Fran, a Filipe Luis, Partey, Saul, Rodri, and that's what I was talking about, where Rodri season played a different role to what he plays this season. But you still have the inverting of Saul inside, and Jimenez, Godin, and then you have a Partey. But what is interesting, if you look, there's no network for the passes from centre back to central midfield. So you don't find any network of passes from centre back to central midfield. So they'd rather, even with Oblak, you see the goalkeepers, and again I speak about the importance of having goalkeepers that are, when you're in possession, you need to have 11 players, because the game now says, can you play, again, is in relation to the game model and the player characteristics. Why can a Barca play through the thirds, try to find possibilities to then bring the ball through to Suarez, and not a team like Atletico who bypass the midfield, bypass the defense, and go all the way to Costa and play from second ball. So generally, this is the game model, and as I said, I mean, you can see that this goes way back for Diego Simeone, and over the years you can still find relevance to this, because this is exactly how they play. No initiation of involving the defensive midfield, but rather to play directly to Costa, find verticality as soon as possible, find transitions as soon as possible, and then look to play. But with the Barca very narrow, through Busquets, inverting of the fullbacks, and a lot of superiorities in the center of midfield. With Chelsea, still a little bit of involvement with Jorginho, but you see how high Kante is and how high Kovacic are. In fact, in the spaces where you find the inverted fullbacks for Barca, you find the half midfielders playing in those spaces, and they've got their own roles, and you can see it's very Italian in the understanding. And this comes from when Sarri was the coach. But you still see how they would have pressure with the fullbacks, inverting inside of a Hazard, who would be what you would a shadow striker or a false nine or a second striker just behind Higuain, and then they'd invert and try to find numerical superiority through the midfield, but also with a lot of horizontal movements of the ball. You can see how the ball moves from left to right to left a lot more than with Atletico. Atletico very direct, very very vertical, and maybe a Barca to a certain extent very asymmetric, with not balance on both sides, more inverting on the left, a bit more width on the right with Dembele and Semedo. But if you look at Chelsea has a little bit more of that balance, but that balance also says, can we then get verticality? And before we get verticality, we need to try and get horizontal movements. So we move the opponent from one side to the other side, and then find possibilities to release the fullbacks. And it's clear to see who has more of that role. So a more important role for Jorginho would be the circulating of the play, moving the ball from left to right. You see how he links up more with Aspile Lequeta and Palmeiro dos Santos. So you see the importance of circulating the play. But with the Busquets, you see a lot more of what we call third line passes. So these passes that go to the next line, they break lines but they are vertical. They eliminate people.
They go to Vidal.
They go 100%. They break line. They go to Vidal. They go to a Sergio Roberto that's inverted, and very few of their passes, unlike with Jorginho, you see that verticality that goes right into Hazard or right into Higuain. But very few of Busquets' passes go right to Suarez.
Yeah.
So the game model is the first point of call.
Oh yes.
Then it's important. All right, let's look at the characteristics. What qualities do they have? So before I even go into it, I say to you, if you could sum up, I've put 3 midfielders or central midfielders for the 3 teams. What qualities would you say Busquets has, Thomas Partey has, and Jorginho have?
With Busquets, his passing ability is superior, and then with Thomas Partey, when I'm looking at these stats here, like his passes are not that bad, but like you can see, like his strongest suit, I think, like the duels, but I don't know, like it. Like he wins the duels, like, but it's crazy. Like it's actually like blowing my mind to see that their duels like are the same. But I would have thought Thomas Partey would be superior in that regard. And then with Jorginho, without looking at these stats, like I always took him as a person like who his passing range is very good, and it's what gives you the advantage.
Yeah. So the reality is that this is per 90. These are stats per 90. It's not in relation to total number of matches where it might be higher, might be lower. But when you try to compare, and equal the playing fields by making sure that the data is probably very similar, because if you don't, then you can't compare apples with apples. Yes. So like you say, with Busquets, for sure, a lot more passes, because we saw even with the game model of Barca, everything goes through him, everything is initiated by him, and everything is initiated from the back. And there is a little bit of a...
I'm also of the opinion that Sergio Busquets, his interceptions are very, very good.
Yes. Yeah. So but if you look at Jorginho is on 5.8 in relation to that. In relation to interceptions.
Yeah.
So Busquets doesn't have as a high, but again, it's in relation to what you've just said, and I think that's why Barca looked to get a Vidal into the team. And people say, but why Vidal and all of this? But Vidal plays the role of covering the ground, the distance, and protecting a bit an aging Busquets who doesn't cover the distances as much as he used to before. But the reality is Vidal, Kante, they are so important because they initiate the press. And you've seen a trend now that even with Liverpool, they have Jordan Henderson that would initiate the press. And James Milner initiate the press. Van Helden, they would initiate the press. And then you have a Fabinho who picks up and intercepts, picks up free balls, intercepts. Ball and terminates the attack from the counter press or from the press of his teammates. So you have a Vidal that is there to do the pressing, to confront, but it's also a characteristic of Busquets, because Busquets has per 90 minutes he wins about 9 defensive duels for his team, and that is as high as a Thomas Partey, because even with a Thomas Partey, you find the possibilities for him to do that. He wins 9, so the statistics are more or less in the same range. So if you look at the stats, almost everything is very similar. The only thing is the impact from an offensive perspective from both sides. One is the more defensive side of an Atletico. The other side is the more offensive side, and like I said, a little bit more dominant from offensively, but with a pragmatic approach with Jorginho. And then you've got what we call the hybrid central midfielder that can attack when we need him, can defend when we need him, and win aerial duels when we need him, can slot in between the center halves when we need him, and be an extra center back if one of the center backs have been pulled out to cover on the sides. And Busquets does that extremely well. But Partey also does that, and what Busquets does, Partey does. But what Jorginho does, which is a strong point from when he was at Napoli, you see that Busquets' numbers also inform us that he's just as strong in that role also. So a more complete sort of central midfielder in the game at the moment, it would have to be Busquets. But if you look at your predominantly your DMs or your CMs that are Jorginho, you could call him, and DM Thomas Partey in modern football. Those are the people that have responsibilities more defensively, and also then you've got people that have responsibilities more offensively. And the trend now is teams that do have a Thomas Partey are not afraid to play with 2 central midfielders. But teams that want to have a luxury of having a Jorginho, for an example, they will try to put a balance in their midfield, and 9 times out of 10 either invert their wingers and overload the center of the pitch, or they would use what we call other midfielders to come and protect them from the side. So that's in relation to that. And then again, which is the most important stat. So for Busquets, the number of dribbles. So the number of dribbles. Sorry, is just to number of dribbles for Busquets is 1.06, and for Thomas Partey is not 7. It's actually 2.1. So for me, this is important because I say, if I look at the number of successful dribbles per 90 minutes, so Thomas Partey has got a lot of successful dribbles, although he plays off second balls and he plays in situations where he's the one that regains the ball, and sometimes through regaining the ball by pressing, and he initiates the press and regains the ball, sometimes through that, before he even finds a consolidation pass or a transition pass, he's the one that then dribbles out of pressure and then finds the possibilities to play for verticality. So you see why in certain moments that he has even more successful dribbles per 90 in relation to Jorginho and Busquets. These are players that keep it simple. The principles of building up from the back is safe and secure. So they keep it simple. They try to get the ball moving as quickly as possible. But Busquets, also because of his the tendency for Barca to invite the press, he's also got higher number of successful dribbles because they play for that. They play to invite the press, and when you're under pressure, you want to eliminate the pressing players. You play out of it, but you want to eliminate the pressing player, so you have superiority. By eliminating the pressing player, it means you've got an extra player now with the ball carrier, and if someone else comes to press the ball carrier, then the person that was marked by the person pressing the ball carrier is now the free man, and that's the principle of positional play and possession.
Okay.
So that's why they would invite the press, and you'd need a player that is press resistant. Partey's athleticism, his physicality, his speed, his strength allows him to be able to be press resistant, especially after regaining possession. So the profile of the players allows you then to sync the role in relation to the game model and the approach from the team. So I don't know if I've answered you.
Yes, in terms of like you see here, you've made it like very, very clear. And now, this one is interesting. This one. Okay, this is the one I was looking forward to, because you know what I was saying in terms of because this conversation comes off a Twitter conversation I had with someone. Because what informs everything what informs how you're gonna play is your game model. Am I right?
Yes.
And also the idea, yes. Oh, and I was about to say the philosophy of the coach or the technical team or whatever. And then what in terms of like formations, like what really informs what comes first? It's like I want to know like the chicken and the egg thing first. Does your philosophy and game model inform your formation, or?
You see, I heard a lot of people when I was at Pirates saying, Pirates is overcoached, or Pirates are disorganized. So I asked myself, I said, what is organization? Because I'm a firm believer in organized chaos. Particularly when you are a team that has a profile of players that we had at Pirates. But the reality is football has become so fluid and so quick that it's actually about controlling the chaos more than anything else. And teams that control chaos, have better chances of winning football matches now. There's not a lot of teams that don't play. I mean, let's look at this Barca passing matrix.
Yes.
I mean, what formation is this?
That's a good question. Like, what formation is this? Like, I wouldn't know.
100%. What?
Like, you wouldn't.
What formation? You got your. What formation is the average positions of the players, the passing matrix and the passing network informs you. These are ball contacts, by the way. It's average positions in relation to ball contact. So the positions that they receive the balls in and the direction of the passes, etc. So even if you look at Chelsea, Chelsea, the fullbacks are in the line higher even beyond Jorginho. And the same thing with Atletico Madrid. You say Atletico Madrid are playing a 2-5. I don't know.
I tried to make up the Chelsea one. Like, the Chelsea one would have to be
Chelsea also. Is it
2-1-5?
2-1-5-1? Is it a 2-1-5-1?
And if you show this to a regular person like me who doesn't see football the way you see it, I'd think, wait, why would you even think Busquets is a midfielder when he's playing so close to the centre backs? You know what I mean? Not that I would say that,
100%.
Yeah.
No, but right. No, but you are, the next question that you would then ask is, but again, that's why I say to you that these things are so important, because from the data you then connect the dots. You can't just interpret data and number of passes, but it's the data. The data then says the game model is like this, the players are like this. Also, these are the dots. How do we then connect the dots to come to that conclusion over there? To say this is what is good for this, or this is what is not good for this. What information do we derive from the wisdom that we receive from reading data? So it's of critical importance that we're not vague in our interpretation of data, and we're not people that just scratch the surface in terms of our understanding of football and the information that we receive. And of course, it sounds nice for people to start talking systems, formations, you sound like 4-4-2, 4-3-3. But we've gone beyond that because of the advancement of the game has gone so far beyond that the reality is, honestly, formations are nothing but just a base of how you line up before you enter the pitch, or the game kicks off.
Yes.
That is for me because of the chaos that happens, and again, the chaos is not just in relation. These are ball contacts in possession. I say to you, you look at the formation and the average positions of a Busquets, you will find, and this is something that is happening now a lot this season. Liverpool were the first to do it with the Fabinho pressing the opposition six. So you will have a Fabinho that leaves the front of the centre backs and goes and presses a Busquets in that position. So you wouldn't have a defensive midfield or a screen or a pivot in your defense. How, you say to me, but how did that happen? How does a number 6 go and press another number 6?
It sounds like madness.
But that's what is happening. It sounds, but that's chaos. Is coaches are really, the reality is that's where the game has gone. Coaches are trying to create chaos. Chess game is how do we play chess, and how do we find probabilities to create better possibilities, advantages on the pitch. The superiority we always talk about. How do we create superiorities on the pitch to give us the best possible chance of getting a better outcome?
Yes. You know what you just...
And like I said... Yeah.
I'm listening.
No, you can continue.
Okay. So what I was saying...
No, continue. I've said
it's the delay. It's the delay that does this. Wait. So I was saying what you just said now reminds me of the legendary pre-match interview Steve Compella did when Chiefs played Sundowns at Loftus, because at that time Coach Steve was playing what you would call like a 3-5-2. And then people would say, is it really a 3-5-2? Because when you're without the ball, it now looks like you have 5 defenders and 2 midfielders. Like, Poch played that system at Spurs. When Spurs were doing very, very well, Poch was playing that system. I remember with Dembele in the midfield. So when you play that type of system, like, because I remember he also did, there was this clip, like he was with the press, and I think it was posted by Ledlum or someone, where he was breaking down how Sundowns plays. he basically said he's doing that because he wants to close the half spaces. He said Sundowns play the half spaces. So you have a lineman doing this, you have a Morena doing this, you have this and that doing that. And then I wondered, so now, when Coach Steve is playing with with like wing backs and has 3 center backs, those wing backs are supposed to take care of like what we would call like what we like to call a Sundowns front 4. Take care of that, but so it's basically trying to find numerical superiority, like without the ball and with the ball as well. Yes, and it's not just numerical superiority, but also positional superiority. Because I want to have if Sundowns attacks with a 4, I want to be able to have a 5. So I'm not outmatched one-on-one throughout the last line, which is very, very, very risky. Some teams can do it.
and you play the chess to say who's the first to withdraw a player. If I go for 4 and I've got the superiority in the midfield, do I want superiority in the midfield or in the last line? Oh, there's a lot of connotation and thought processes that go into it. And once you've decided where you'd like your superiority, again, maybe in certain phases of the game, I say, I want to be able, if they're going to press me with 2, I want to build up with 3. So I have an extra man to play.
Yeah.
Or do I want to defend with 3 because they attack with 2, and when we go aggressively, maybe I don't have the speed and the physicality, but positionally I have possibilities to have an extra man to cover spaces and to control half spaces. So do I want to have not just numerical superiority but positional superiority, and those are the things that you think about and you put it to context, and that's why opposition analysis is very important. For an example, speaking of Sundowns, where does Themba Zwane play? In attack, and
he doesn't have a position, that guy.
Yeah, you see, but we want to talk about formations.
And we want to drag him to a position in the formation and say, no, he's playing part of a midfield 4 in a 4-4-2 or part of a front 3.
No, it's not positions anymore. It's functions. It's roles. It's the player's role. Okay, the demarcation, the starting point is the position, of course, because that gives a little bit of a guideline to the player. But the reality is now is functions and its roles, because if Sundowns with Lebusa is a completely different Sundowns to Sundowns with Langama.
Oh, okay, I get you, yes.
Well, yes, Lebusa sometimes plays at left fullback. Am I right? I've watched.
Yeah, you're right. Of course you have.
So it's a different team when Sundowns has Langama and Sundowns has Lebusa.
Yeah.
Or Sundowns has Tapelo at right back, or when they have Anele at right back. It's completely different. Completely. Yeah. The position is the same. Believe you me, they both called left backs. But the reality is the roles are completely different.
Yeah.
And the function of the team, how the team goes on and function, is completely different. Completely different when they have the two. So it's important that you understand where the direction that football takes.
Yes.
It's important to understand the direction, and the direction of football now, it talks about fluidity, dynamic interchanges, lots of flexibilities in the structure.
Yeah.
And in possession and out of possession. Out of possession because of the predominant application of the press in the game at the moment. So there's chaos in the press.
Yes.
There's chaos in the press because the press is not necessarily about a structure. The press is about creating tension. You can't create tension when you keep the structure. You've got to kill the structure.
Yes.
By chaos. So
and overloading certain spaces.
Yeah, and you overload and you use more numbers. Well, there are 3 phases to the press. Is you initiate the press, and then there's support for the press, and then there's the termination of the press. Well, in the sense of terminating and regaining possession from the opponent. That could be from mistake, because you see what we call pressing signals or moments to press. But that is more applicable when you have different zones where you want to press, etc., because your counter press doesn't have triggers. Your counter press has when you lose the ball, immediately try to get it back. So if I'm playing as for an example, if I'm playing as Sergio Roberto and I've inverted inside and we lose the ball inside, and immediately, and I'm the first defender, I've got to engage. Now, what's our defensive structure at that moment? Our defensive structure is not necessarily that, but of course, the formation is closely aligned to the team's defensive organizational forms, more than in modern football than the attacking, because in attack now there's a lot of freedom and fluidity and dynamic movements that are there to create problems and to ask more questions, because teams are better coached now, and of course with better coaching comes a better organizational forms from a defensive perspective, and teams don't concede as many goals as in the past. Strikers don't score as many goals as they used to, because as the game advances, as the theory becomes more and more easily available, coaches are becoming better and better at setting up their teams and making sure that, and of course the pressure also, the pressure that's put on coaches now. Coaches look first to say, how do I stop my team from losing matches, instead of how do I, and it's only the ones that are wet behind the ears, whose teams play 3-3 and 4-3 and 3-2 and try to outscore them.
Yeah, I was in Orlando when you played Cape Town City. When you were still at Pirates, I was like, yes. Like, for me, because I was a neutral, it was such an entertaining game. But I can only imagine like what was going through your mind.
Yeah, but those are the games that they leave. Of course, we want to win football matches, and I'm no different to any. I want to win, and because we've got a responsibility to our people. Our people need to leave the stadium with a full feel-good feeling. We do, and that's important. We cannot subtract that from the game. The game is, and that's why everybody at this moment in time misses the game, because it's a game that has a huge influence on the well-being of people that love the game.
Yes.
And even from a biological or chemical point of view, where when you have feel good feeling, there's you live longer, you're happier at home, you're more productive at work, etc. So for society, it's important for us to make our people happy. And how do you make the people happy is by winning games. Particularly the big teams must do well. The big teams have got a huge following, and it's important that Pirates, Sundowns, Chiefs have success, because they influence the happiness index, of society. So it's important, and like any other coach, it's important that we play to win football matches, but it's also about perspective, because how, do you win more by attacking, or do you win more by defending and not conceding? It's perspective. Klopp also tried to find a balance when he arrived at Liverpool, and it only came 3-4 seasons later.
Yes.
So it's not the easiest thing to do, because even Klopp at the beginning when he arrived at Liverpool, he was winning games 3-2 or drawing 3-3 or losing 4-3, because but he learned from those things, and he tries to manage. And it's the same even with me. I of course I want my team to have more possession, and that is how I will be. But I've also learned that there's more ways to win football matches than just to be gung ho and attack. And you learn those things to going through them. And you have to pay the school fees.
Yeah, school fees is school fees is the most important thing in football.
And it's expensive. It's expensive. It's very expensive.
That school fees is expensive. That school fees is expensive. I remember.
The most important thing, is don't pay school fees for the same lesson. Don't repeat the grade. Very important. Pay school fees, learn the lesson, and move and get promoted to the next grade. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Do not wait for football or the universe to teach you the same lesson twice. It's too expensive.
I remember being at the derby, the derby at FNB, because you played two derbies when you were Pirates, at FNB and then Derby in the Cup. I remember thinking at halftime, this team is in desperate need of a 9 right now. Like, I wish there was a way I could text you and ask you, why are you not playing a 9? Like, you need that presence. But also somehow I understood why you didn't play with a 9 and you did what you did. Even though when you brought on Mabasa, like you guys were different.
Yeah.
Because I think continue.
No, continue. No, because you're explaining before I can answer.
Oh yes,
I must have the full context.
Yes, because I was thinking, the burden on Gabadinho was so much so that he tries to do everything all at once. And I was listening to Coach Clive Barker last week. He did an interview with Robert Marawa, and then he said, he said to Doctor, don't drop that deep. Stay there so that you don't use all your energy here, and when you get in the box, you no longer have that energy. And now when I think about it, I'm like, I think it's the same issue with Gabadinho that time, because the burden was too much. And then when you guys brought on Mabaso, and then you had like a traditional 9 with presence that occupied their center backs, it stretched them, and then Gabadinho was able to find those spaces. Hence, he even scored the type of goal he scored.
There's always madness. There's madness in our thinking. And for every team, we try to come up with a plan. And sometimes the plans work, sometimes the plans don't work. But there's always, again, the game model informs and the players' characteristics informs the role that we want to play. So when you play with Peter Crouch in relation to maybe playing with a Gabriel Jesus or a Firmino, for an example, there's probably some form of thinking behind it. I wish I could go into so much depth and detail into this, because there's so much that went into our preparation, particularly because we had just played Chiefs before, a few days before, and also with the use of data and understanding the profile of the opposition that you play in the first half, in the second half, when they're leading, when they're losing, how do they play? When the game starts, how do they play? The profile of the center backs that they use, the profile of the central midfielders that they use. I wish I could go into so much detail, but I don't want to give a lot away also. Because I'm a cheaper and I've still got to play Chiefs, but there are a lot of consistent patterns that happen, and behavioral patterns that happen, and sometimes subconsciously from players and in different teams, and that's the normality of football. It's about you picking those up and trying to exploit them, and you've got to use the tools that you have to try to exploit. It becomes a lot easier when the team is sitting a little bit deeper to use a number 9, because a number 9 is not going to, and a traditional number 9 that is a focal point, is not going to be looking to get spaces behind, and the reality is once you play more or less in and around the box with limited space behind, it means you've got more numbers of your personality players have to play a little bit closer, and they play facing where you score, but they are closer. So, and at certain times, your number 9 is not the first person to initiate the press. You've got players that are around him that initiate the press, more mobile, more quicker to close down the ball, etc. So you're thinking about how do you link your attack to your defense. Your number 9 is because you want to play closer, you have more contact, have more possibility, and that's why he scored the goals that he scored with Mabas in and around the box. Only one goal I remember where he scored on transition was against Cape Town City, with a pass from KB. Unbelievable, the dribble and the pass. But they had the set of structure that I'm speaking about, with a Clement Erasmus playing as the top man and a high line. And once you beat the first press, because they've got numbers around the ball in that area, once you beat the first press and you are able to play out, then you need a little bit more of people to use the space behind. But the reality is your number 9 must assist in with regards, and that's where Liverpool have probably find the right balance this season with a Firmino that works so hard for Mo Salah and Mane, and even at certain times becomes your extra midfielder, you know. And
because he most of the time he initiates the like in most cases, like, you will find that Firmino is the one who started the move and
he's their most important player offensively, but because he's so important offensively, he becomes so important defensively, because he's got key characteristics and traits that suit the game model. So it would be very difficult for Liverpool to play the same way they are playing, and that's why then I said to you even initially that your game model is the basis of everything, because it influences training methodologies and curriculum. It influences scouting recruitment policies. It influences tactics, organizational schemes, strategies, because it's the beginning. The idea is the beginning, and with teams like Atletico, for an example, who have had Diego Simeone now for the last 8 years. The philosophy was so deeply entrenched into Atletico that it's going to be an expectation now. Before you even switch on TV, even post as Diego Simeone, the expectation is to find a team that's very resolute in defense, very aggressive and passionate on the pitch, robust in defensive duels, but very, very aggressive in counter-attack and very ruthless in not needing too many chances to put the game away. But when you have a Barcelona, for example, now also with a game model that is synonymous with its culture, the tradition, the profile of the team, those are the things that big clubs are trying to build, because that's easier to sustain success over a longer period of time, because your youth system now is also inculcated into the culture, the tradition, the playing philosophy, and now you're training 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds the same way that you want with the first team. So it's easier for you to then build not just a football model, but a business model of the club in the sense that your promotion of youth players is aligned to the first team playing philosophies, and that then also saves the club a lot of money in terms of going out and buying players. So you then produce your own superstars, and players that can function very well. I mean, over the Sundowns is also a good example to use, because over the years, the same coach, consistency in the approach and the playing forms says the youth then play very similar to other first team players, and then it's easier for a Piso to adapt, a Madisha to adapt, a Pessi to adapt, a Keletso to adapt, because the training is very similar. The roles and the functions within of the different players, of course, but the roles and the functions within the system and the organizational forms are very, very aligned. And then you see a Sundowns that's moving from being a Sundowns that buys 7-8 players to promoting 2 or 3 every transfer window,
and then buying 2 or 1,
and buying 2 or 1, or buying nothing at all. So. Like the last window, Sundowns promotes Promise, and no activity, no other activity.
No other activity. And the window before that, they promoted Nico and Majaribo.
Yes, and they've got so many of these younger boys that are out on loan that can still come back, and Balak, Figo. They've got so many of these players that can still come back and be able to perform within the set framework. So Ajax Cape Town were also a good example. And you look at Ajax, how they produced, and they continue to produce even now, players that immediately move from the first team, from the youth into the first team, and they adapt to the conditions. Without, of course, there's a period that you've got to give. Others adapt quicker than others. Others have to go on loan and come back, like a Pessi or a Keegan Dolly or even a Getletso, for an example. Even a Madisha, they go out. But others, like Nico didn't go on loan.
He didn't go on loan. He just came straight to the team.
Yeah, he came from their ABC team and immediately went into the first team and on his debut scored an amazing goal against Chippa. So that's why the game model is so important. That's why the game model is such an important part, and for the bigger teams in particular, who have such bigger demands on the football club and the organization and the prestige and success and consistency, sustained success. That's why a deeply entrenched game model is so important.
Yeah. You know what? I think you and I will properly get other topics and then set them up. Already in my head, I'm thinking, this will be wherever we post this, I'll just call it organized chaos, because it's the first one and we just go into so many things that we've always wanted to have a conversation about. But like, you have a nice image here. You can.
I'm just gonna conclude with this because otherwise we're gonna spend so much time, and I wanted to show some clips and all that. But we'll continue. I think we can say part one. Yeah, we can call it part organized chaos part one. Yeah, and then we can continue. We can continue with part two. But generally, this is what I was talking about in relation to the functions, because that's what, at the end of the day, it's about the functions, the roles of the players within those positions. So we've moved away from speaking about positions, but we speak more about the roles now. So we say a registrar in relation to a defensive midfielder, a registrar like we've seen, and Andrea Pirlo, for an example, it would be your first contact on the build-up phase. Everything goes through him. A peripheral awareness, both in attack and in defense, vision to see things beyond the first line, beyond the press, and understanding what's happening around him in relation to the space, the ball, his teammates, the opponents, etc., etc. Important for progressively advancing the ball to create superiorities, whether with passes or whether with dribbles and advancing the ball, and that's very important because of, as we've spoken about, how the game has moved from deeper blocks to now even higher presses and more man-orientated presses in particular. So those are important, because once you can get into your registrar or your deep line playmaker, you are then able to find superiority where you find one-on-ones and qualitative superiorities. For an example, that's why Barca built from the back. That's why Barca want to invite the press, because they want Lionel Messi in one-on-one situations. It's the best thing for him. Sometimes even for Messi, a 3-versus-1 is qualitative superiority, because he's got the quality to win the situation and come out with the ball and retain possession. So teams that are like that, Chelsea, when they had Hazard even last season, they used Jorginho to be able to invite the press, so that once the ball finds the final third and comes into the penetration phase of play, they have possibilities of superiority, whether numerical, and Bayern were very good at that. Barca were very good at that, with an Alves overloading and either underlapping or overlapping situations where they had 2v1s. So to find those superiorities, not just qualitative but even numerical, move the ball from one side to the other side and switch the play. Those are the functions for that, and more zonal, more positional, in the sense that you know where you get him. He's there. He's the link between not the team, both horizontally and vertically, and the lines are a little bit more compact because he controls the team in front, behind him, and to the sides. But a DM has more responsibilities to sit in front of the defensive line. So even more so now than anything else, to screen and protect and act as a pivot, to protect the back line and the space in front of them, and helps them to mark the striker or the number 9 and cover the fullbacks. So your defensive midfielder is the one that says, I'm part of the defensive organization of the team. Even when we have the ball, I act as a security for rest defense. I don't want to look to play. I don't want to step into midfield. I don't want to step out of my position to press. I stay right in front of my back four. If they have two strikers, I will help my center backs. If we play with a back four, I pick up the extra striker. I can act as an extra center back. I can act as a pivot, as a screen, so that no balls are played to the feet of the strikers. But like I said, the game has moved, and particularly due to this man, Sergio Busquets, the game has moved really in the sense where you've got a hybrid central midfielder, one that can say, I'm there when you need me in both phases. I can do the function of a register. I can perform the functions of a defensive midfielder, and I'm equally just as good as maybe having one or the other. And Busquets is now that prototype of a central midfielder. At Pirates, we had a Musa Nyatama who was excellent with that. Excellent, probably one of the deep line playmakers that I think this country has ever seen and will ever see in a very, very long time.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm happy that finally we have something.
That we agree on.
Something we agree on over the years. No, but of course, unbelievable. And like I say, I think if you play, and that's also my next thing now is to pay closer attention to Thiago Alcantara and how he's performing. I've seen Pochettino using an Eriksen in that role. I've seen Madrid trying to use a Modric, Kroos in that role. You know, in the absence of a Casemiro, they saw the Kovacic, the Kroos or Modric in that deep line play. So teams are very experimental, and they're trying to find possibilities of coming out of these high pressing situations, and you need technically proficient players and players that have been moved. And that was Andrea Pirlo, for an example. If you follow his playing career, he was at Brescia, and he was the attacking midfielder. He was the you said earlier to me, trequartista.
Hey, these terms of yours, hey.
That was nice. I've tried to limit the football lingo. If you listen to me, I've tried to basic terminology. But he was the number 10 in the team. And then there was Roberto Baggio that came, and the coach had a problem because he needed, and every coach tries to have his best players on the pitch. So the coach had a problem, and he had to then move Andrea Pirlo to a deeper playmaking role. He was still a playmaker, but it was a deeper role because Roberto Baggio came in and he had to be the number 10. And that's where you found this move. And then Man United started also. You had Michael Carrick being bought from Tottenham, and then it just was a situation of having a David Beckham playing as a 6 for Real Madrid, and it became the in thing. But as I said to you, Man United were. I was reading the history, and you I don't want you to ask me the name of the player, but I was reading about this and really, I've got the name. Actually, I wrote it down. His name was Charlie Roberts. He was the first deep line player for Manchester United in the early 1900s.
Is it?
So he's the deep line playmaker was a role that Charlie Roberts was known for, and he was playing it in the for Man United in a 1-2-3-5 formation.
Yes. So now these midfielders that are like your Busquets that you say are hybrid midfielders. They're the ones that have eliminated this thing that things have to be either black or white. Like you either have to be a defensive midfielder or another term. So they just carved their own lane in between a tracotista and a register.
100%. And to be honest, that's where football is going, because you don't want to lessen your efficiency as a team. You don't want to limit yourself to saying, your role is to defend, your role is to, and particularly with how quick the game has become. The phases are so interlinked. The one phase influences the next phase, and they're so interlinked that you can't help but think about defending when you have the ball, and you can't help but think about attacking, rest attack when you are defending. So you want players that are able to think a phase ahead. So Busquets, when his team is attacking, he's already thinking, how am I going to help the team to regain possession, to cut passing lines, to intercept balls? Which player is the first one as an outlet of the opposition? How do I do proper rest defense, and how do I assist the team to stay more in possession? Because that's our game model. We want to dominate the phase of the game. We want to be the more dominant side, and that's the personality we have. So the players like that are the ones that control, and you can't then have a situation where you say, we hide now because and again, that's why even you see how the game has moved with regards to that. The importance of a central midfielder, then also moved to the importance of centre backs, and then moved to the importance of the full backs, and then now you're going to the importance of goalkeepers, because when you have the ball, and maybe even more so now because of the pressing schemes, even when you don't have the ball, you need 11 players now. You really need, and that's why even you find the use of goalkeepers that are playing in the first line of the build-up processes, right next to, in between the centre backs. It's crazy, but that's the chaos that you are finding now, because that's how high they are playing. And can you imagine if you lose the ball? That's how high they have to be, sweeper keepers and covering space behind. So it's unless you're playing against Uhlompo, you can't do that.
They'll punish you.
The moment Hlompo gets it, you know where it's going. So especially if you don't press it immediately, But that's where football is going. Football is going to a phase where you can't limit the team in a way, and you need multifunctional footballers to be able to provide the team with specialities in attack and in defense, and that's the most important thing now for where the game is going.
I remember when I started learning about Marcelo Bielsa. I think he was at Lille when I first found out about Marcelo Bielsa, even though I'm obsessed with him now. I remember he said his formations, you don't just say 4 whatever, it's 1, 3.
Yeah.
So I remember saying, I think Sundowns would punish Lille. The way they play, I was like, I would beat these ones.
Yeah, when I started doing that in the PS, I said, this guy is crazy. One what?
Yeah, your formation starts with your goalkeeper.
Yeah, they are ball players. They are goal players. They're not goalkeepers. They are goal players. They just so happen to be in a different color and to have an extra special law that allows them to use their hands, while everybody else has to use their feet only. But the reality is they can only use their hands when they're inside the box. So, but they've got to be technically efficient, particularly with their feet now, because they see beyond everybody else. They're the ones that have less pressure, and it's very difficult. Though some teams try it, it's very difficult to man mark a goalkeeper, because if you're going to man mark a goalkeeper with a striker, it means somewhere on the pitch there's an extra 2 people on the pitch.
Yes.
Because you've goalkeeper in the other net, and then your one is pressing our goalkeeper. So we've got 10, and you've eliminated 2 of your players. So it means we've got 2 extra players somewhere free on the pitch, and that's why teams want to build from the back and have the superiority of being able to use the goalkeepers to invite the press. And once they can press the keeper, we know immediately that we've got numerical superiority. And then you try to occupy the spaces that the gaps that have been left vacant. And then by occupying those gaps, you can then beat the press by and try to exploit situations, whether you've got space, whether you've got qualitative superiority in situations of 1v1 or 2v1s where you've got overload. So it's all about that, and that's why a lot of the time our thinking has to be in line with, once again, the way we want to play. It starts with the idea, and once you have the idea and you can simplify it, and I've tried my best today to simplify the idea in relation to the roles and the function. It's easier to sell it to the players, and once they believe in that, it's easier to find its efficiency on the pitch.
I have two last questions for you.
Yeah.
One, do you think the traditional number 10 is dead in football? Like your Ozils, your James Rodriguez's, your, even like, so one could say your Tiko in his early days at Pirates and Sundowns, where he was that guy who played in between the central midfielders and your strikers. Do you think that traditional number 10 is dead in football now?
Not necessarily, and I'll tell you why. Because nothing dies in football. Football, you'll still see the rebirth of two. I mean, we don't see two out-and-out strikers in football anymore. You don't see Andy Cole and Dwight York now anymore. But a team like Atletico, like I say, they still try to have two out-and-out strikers, even though one will be tasked with the responsibilities of dropping into midfield because of the importance of not being outnumbered in midfield. But the reality is, I think where the game is at the moment, it makes sense. Spaces are suffocated. Teams defend with multiple lines now. They stagger their teams a little bit more instead of having two banks or this line and that line, and they stagger their teams a little bit more so that it's not as easy to eliminate players with one pass, you know. So the reality then is, then you suffocate spaces, you suffocate, particularly in what we call the golden zone or the red zone for the defensive team. You suffocate that area of the pitch, and that space in front of the back four is not a space that is easy to find and exploit. Again, also because of the importance of the central midfielders now, and even center backs or central defenders that are able to step into the midfield and press. They are faster, they are quicker, they are more intelligent, they read situations better, you know. So they can step into those areas and press. Those spaces are a bit more suffocated. There's not a lot of room for manipulation and that, but it's still an important area. That's why the half space is so important, because some of the teams are using it as bait. If we can position a winger inside that area, and that's now where we get to inverted wingers, inverted fullbacks, and once we can invert our people into that golden zone or the red zone of the opponent, now we say center back come press or fullback come press. If they attach, can we create a space beyond and into the dead zone where they come from? So I don't think 100% is gone, but I can understand why there's not a lot of it now, because there's so much of the importance of pressing at the moment. It's saying to the teams that can you suffocate the spaces? There's not a lot of time to find those pockets and find the spaces in between the lines. So it becomes very important that you look to play sometimes even beyond, because there's not a lot of space in front. And once they then release the structure of the team, and maybe then you can find the gaps in between the lines. But it's a process, and it needs training, it needs a lot of work. So I don't think it's gone. I think even a team like Manchester City have players like about David Silva, Bernardo Silva, even that are able to play in lines and manipulate situations. When they are pressed, they look to go beyond. When they are not pressed, they look to receive on the half turn. So it's there, but it's got a little bit more of it needs a little bit more of a multifunctional role. The players that can play not just in front, but can play even on the other side. So very mobile and not just only to receive balls to feet.
So because I remember I once read like just before Sundowns started the CBD. I remember reading somewhere. Which I'm not sure. I forgot where I read this. Where Coach Pizzo was basically saying he prefers to use a number 10 like Karma, who will press, who will it's like when you need him to press, he does it. When you need him to create, he does it. When you need him to score, he does it. So I think maybe football just moved into that space where you no longer have that number 10 who was like Ronaldinho, like who doesn't defend, doesn't do anything, just waits for the ball and just does the magic. I think maybe that's just where football went.
Yeah, but I think if you listen to, there's a quote Mourinho attributed to Schneider when he spoke about why he loves Schneider so much, and when he plays a number 10, he wants a number 10 that's going to be a 9 when they attack, but that can be an 8 when they defend. And that was similar to what Coach Peter was talking about Karma. Karma could be an 8 when the team didn't have the ball, but more than anything, his possibilities to project himself into a number 9 when the team had the ball and not just play to get the ball into feet, but also to find box entries and look to terminate and score goals. And that was Kama's big qualities for us at Sundowns. Was is not just his ability to defend and initiate the pressing from the top, but more than anything, if you had a number 9 that was like a Castro who could link up the play, establish the play, you then needed, especially because Castro would take so much attention from the centre backs, that you'd have gaps that would open up for players like Abu Kama. So you needed them to be able to exploit those spaces, but because of their intelligence and their creativity and their efficiency. They are very effective. Kama is very effective inside the box. His decision making on Kama inside the box is probably one of the best that I've ever seen, because he makes better decisions. Kama makes better decisions inside the box than he makes outside the box, which is strange because you find it's true. You find players that make better decisions outside of the box because there's too much pressure inside the box. They rush passes, they rush shots, they're not as composed. But Kama makes better decisions inside the box than he does outside the box. So again, game model in relation to players' strengths, qualities to find the right function for the player. That's very, very important.
That's why I tweeted after the Sundowns Highlands Park game. I'm not sure if you remember the goal Pilato Makalo scored. I said that is such a Kama goal. Like I know it's like it's an insulting thing to say, but yes, it's an insulting thing to say this. But those are goals out of nothing. I know those players are smart and they get themselves in those positions. It just can't be out of nothing. But like, you know, to put it in layman's terms, like it seems like it's a goal out of nothing. Because like that boy had 2 defenders in front of him, but he just looked up, saw what the goal is, and then he didn't even kill that ball. Like he just like killed it. And I was like, this is such a Kama goal. I was like, this is the type of goals that we've needed.
Yeah, he has those qualities. Keloto has those qualities. Keloto is also a sniper, and and he's one for the future. So hopefully, he used to score a lot of those in the youth development, and hopefully the boy is remains focused and continues to work hard, because he's got an unbelievable potential, the boy,
Yeah, no, this. I'm even afraid to see how long this has gone for, but we'll find a way to.
I wonder how to
chop it up. We'll find a way to chop it up. I think.
Yeah. Well, good luck. I'll leave it to you. I've seen I've seen the type of stuff you produce, so I'm gonna leave that to you.
Yeah, no, I'll try. I think. I think what we'll do is, okay, let me stop the recording, and then some of these things we'll say offline.